I'm Lynn.
I'm Amanda.
And this is the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. We're cutting through the fluff and cracking open what it really takes to build a business and life that you actually want.
No gurus, no gatekeeping, just real talk, big action, and the badass energy you need to scale and slay.
Some episodes, it's just us.
And sometimes we bring on powerful guests with stories that'll hit home.
Either way, this is not about playing small.
It's about going all in.
Let's get after it. Hey there, I'm Lynn.
And I'm Amanda. Welcome to the Pursuit of Badasserie, the podcast. Let's get clear on communication. It is so important in your business, and we're going to break it down for you today.
Yeah.
It's important in everything, honestly,
It
not
is.
just business, relationships, existing.
Yeah. Well, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody and you think you're really clear, but they turn around and if they repeat it back to you, they're repeating something completely different. Like there's lots of different nuances that go with the clarity in communication, but really all you have control over is how clear you are and how clear you can explain that. And I will say, like, the more confident you get in your communication skills, it shows in other ways. Like when you show up to a sales call, you are more likely statistically to close sales. When you have engagement with clients, you are more likely to have longer retention. When you're at a business networking, you're more likely statistically to be noticed. Like there's lots of different things. When you're clear in your communication and your relationships and hold those boundaries in your personal relationships, then you're more likely to have one that's not going to harm at least you as much, right?
Absolutely. And when I think about the way people communicate in their businesses, and I recently had a come to Jesus moment with someone about the way they were communicating with their staff, because they were having a lot of problems with the staff not ever calling them back and not ever reaching out to them. And it came down to that they were reaching out to via email for everything. Everything was being emailed,
But I hate emails.
but nobody was reading them, including me as the business consultant. I didn't see the emails. And they had a couple of wrong emails. They didn't even have the correct information and then they were wondering why, I keep emailing them and they're leaving me these messages and they didn't call back. I want to text this, that, or I texted them and then they never got back to me and I never heard from them and they're the bad communicator. I'm like, except
This is not 1980s anymore.
yeah. So if you really want, it's really okay
It's insane.
to get on the phone occasionally and actually make sure they're receiving the messages before you just put them into this pigeonhole of like, they aren't communicating. Well, maybe they never got the message, and that's on you as the CEO if you're not properly communicating. And the same comes down to prospective clients. If they email you a question and they don't leave any other answer, any other way to communicate, don't just write them off as like, I couldn't call them back. Well, no, they emailed you, so maybe they want you to communicate via email. They texted you, maybe they want you to text them back. If they called you, maybe they want you to call them back versus just, they called me and I sent them an email. Well, maybe they're not email people. And we talk about the platinum rule a lot. Treating people the way they want to be treating, understanding how communication goes, and setting up an expectation, particularly within the hierarchy of your business, of how you expect communication to happen. Because if you're on Slack and your team doesn't even know what Slack is, good luck with the communication channels on that, because you've got to set up an expectation there and make it clear about how you expect communication to happen and when and for what. And you cannot assume that they will get it because that's what's practical or that's common sense. There is no such thing as common sense when it comes to a business communication. You can't assume anything because some people don't communicate the same way as you. They just don't. So it's up to you as the CEO to take that into consideration and make accommodations for that and make it clear how you expect communication to happen in your business.
Well, CEO or not, like communication's important on all fronts.
On all levels of the business.
Yeah. And if you haven't listened to our DISC series, DISC, I would strongly suggest for you to listen to DISC because there's a lot of behavioral style nuances also that come with communication, period. So understanding our DISC styles can really help you with getting very clear in your communication. I love that you said assume. Like you want to assume nothing when it comes to it. If you want to make sure something's really clear, one of my favorite thing is could you please repeat back to me what I said? And not in an asshole way, but in a way that is like, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Could you give me a recap of what your responsibilities are in here? So that way we know that we're on this. I'm a big advocate too, especially with clients or like heated discussions or things that are really important is when you have a verbal discussion with somebody, you follow up with an email to recap that yourself. It's one of my communication techniques that I love. I teach it all the time. I have for probably 2 decades. I feel like it.
It's also really good for legal reasons, but
yeah, it is. So you would just do a quick recap of like my framework, or like, thank you. This is my understanding. This is what I have to get to you. This is what I need from you. Are there any questions? That way you have some kind of question at the end. So it's a really simple format or framework for an email follow-up. I think also, like, and you were saying like when, I think that that's really important. The timing of communication. Like if you expect, like if things are urgent, you need to let them know that this is urgent. I need to call back within. There's nothing wrong with you telling people how to interact with you, regardless if you're the leader or not. Obviously, the way you state it might be slightly different in the position that you hold, or the ranking in which you are compared to the other people that you're communicating with. And that's okay, but you can still request that. Even if you're not the one giving the orders, but taking the orders, like our team is really good at saying, okay, when do you need this by? Like they ask us versus us telling them, I need this by Friday. And so we tend to typically tell them, but we're trained in this, right? Like this is something that we practice. So it's really important to make sure that you're having it. I want to go back to the email thing. This starts from day one. We train others how to treat us. And I think that in some like classifications or verticals of business, yes, emails are more important than others. There's nothing wrong if you're running a business and you have a bunch of employees, like what is that? Is it Slack? Is it WhatsApp? Is it this? Is it that? And what the rules and regulations are, kind of our expectations are around each of those. Like for us, it's WhatsApp. We love WhatsApp, and we just create groups with our different teams and make sure that that communication channel stays for that particular whatever. And we know like we don't have to obey business hours because we work at all different hours, right? Versus maybe a client or another vendor, we're not going to text them. Email is okay, but we won't maybe text them during their nighttime hours, right? So that kind of that clarity around that timing and creating the go, even with clients, like this is the way we'll communicate. I always tell clients, I check emails last. So if something's important and you emailed it to me, you need to ping me with a WhatsApp or a text message. So really you're training other people how to communicate with you, but you also need to hold up your side of the bargain. And you can always ask them, and depending on, again, that relationship dynamic, you might have to give more to their communication style versus the way you want to be communicated.
And it also has to do with the hierarchy of the importance of the communication. I mean, you're not going to see the emergency broadcast system doing an email to the nation to tell you that there's a hurricane coming. Like they don't send an email, they do a big alarm system, and that's how they're communicating. So being able to understand what types of communication come in what forms is also important. And when you go back into emails, even if it's not from a C-suite perspective, if it's from a manager perspective, or even if it's you applying for a job or working on a contract or working with a contract with a product that you're going to be maybe carrying, maybe you're working with a vendor that you need to clarify things with, being able to say in that, did I leave anything out, or is this correct? It will solidify those verbal contracts in a way that is legally binding if you're giving them the opportunity to respond. In some countries, yes. But it gives you much more to stand on, a big platform to stand on when you have to go back to them and say, this, and this didn't get done. This is the email we sent. Was there anything that we left out of this? It gives you just a starting point, if nothing else, to create negotiation, to create conversation, to negotiate on things that came up unexpectedly. So the way you're communicating and the way you're safeguarding your communications and the way you set it up is important. It can't just be assumed that everybody has email. It can't be assumed that everybody will check their messages 50, 100 million times a day. It can't be assumed that they got your random Facebook message. They might not have. And it goes in both directions, from a positive and from a negative. If you're not getting the result you want, positive or negative, check your communication before you start writing off that as an ineffective contract, or it's not going to work out, or whatever it might be. There might be a communication block that you're not even aware of, but you won't know about it until you actually look into the situation. And again, teach people how, or train people how to treat you. What is it that you're expecting? What are your expectations? And make it clear to everyone. And you have to say it more than once. It's not like you can say it January of 2023 and expect somebody in July of 2025 to remember that conversation if they even still work for you. So it has to be said over and over again. The communication, if you want it to be clear, if you want it to be consistent, it has to be reiterated over and over and over again.
Yeah, but not in a naggy way. Like,
Anyway,
yeah,
but
this is important though. And it depends on what you're recommunicating, but especially when it comes to boundaries, like you have to keep saying that over and over again. I was thinking of a particular person, but this has happened more than once, but I don't know what it is about even being here in Thailand. Like I find this a lot. And I know some of it's the cultural nuances, but the couple I'm thinking of, English is their first language. And I watch them and the way that they communicate and they say one thing, but their team isn't hearing what they think that they're hearing. And then they're frustrated that, they're not doing this and they're not doing that. Well, what did you say? Or, stop being a martyr. You're putting yourself up on a high horse, but really you actually didn't communicate that clear when we kind of break it down and see. And so I think that getting your head out of your ass and out of the ego to really see, like, are you communicating in a way that's palatable for those individuals? Regardless if you're nagging them time and time again, it will fall on deaf ears, right? And so they're disconnected. So you have to change the way in which you communicate with them so that way they can hear different. Because if they're checked out, they're checked out. You're not going to communicate to your shareholders the same way you'll communicate to your potential prospects, to your employees. Like shareholders want to hear all about ROI. Clients or prospects want to hear about the transformation that they're going to have. Employees or workers want to hear about, they want to be motivated. They want to buy into the vision. They want to see where we're going in the accountability, even if they don't think that they want accountability, most do in the structure. And so even if you're saying the same thing to 10 different people, they have different positions and they hold different weight, then you need to change the way in which you kind of present it. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. They can't comprehend or understand.
absolutely. The clarity comes from multiple angles when it comes to communicate, when it comes to anything really. But for communication, if that's your goal, if that's something that you really want to see progress in your business or your personal life or just in general, it's got to come from multiple angles. And I think it's going to take a little bit of realistically looking at how do you communicate? How do you prefer to communicate? Do people around you know that that's your preference? Anybody who works with Lynn and I knows that we're not going to answer your email as fast as we'll answer your texts. It's never going to happen.
Never.
And anybody who works with us knows this.
And that's the modality, not the tone, but never.
Yeah. So it's just
never
being very clear about that. I mean, it's one of the first things I mentioned in a very first client meeting. If this is important to you, need me to get back to you within less than 24 hours, do not email it to me because it's not going to happen the way you want it to. So where is that threshold? Where is that boundary within your own business? What is never going to work for you? What is always going to work for you? And communicate that with your team, with those around you, with your vendors, with everybody, because that's going to set you up for success when you're trying to communicate in your business as well.
Yes, absolutely. An asset that you can use or something that you can use to help you kind of figure it out is like record yourself in the way that you communicate, your tonality, because communication is so much more than just the modality in which you're communicating, but it's also all of your whole senses, your body language, everything. And so watching yourself in the mirror and how you come across, like there's so many different things that we can do to get down into the communication and the clarity of, if your mouth is saying one thing, but your mind doesn't believe it and your actions and your body language is saying something completely different, then the person on the receiving end isn't going to hear it. They're not going to understand it. And so it's really important to always look within and say, okay, like, yep, I'm training others how to treat me. I'm, having the conversations, but how am I actually communicating? Like, when am I not being clear? How am I not being clear? Because even if you're the clearest person in the world, which I really, for a couple of decades, like I've really practiced this. Like this is something I've studied. This is something that I've put in. I mean, it might be a little too blunt sometimes, but clear most of the time. And it's something that I work on. But I can remember going through phases where I'm like, I know this is what I'm saying, but they're hearing something completely different. What I realize is I was saying it, but maybe I wasn't believing it at that time, or maybe I was saying it in a way that they couldn't understand me or that they didn't want to understand me. And so maybe it was falling on deaf ears. So really checking yourself and understanding how you communicate naturally, and like even forewarning people, like, listen, especially when I'm stressed, this is the way that I'm going to be. Or if you want this is how you get it out of me. Like the more we know ourselves and are able to communicate that clearly as well, and not use it as a crutch or an excuse to be an asshole. That's not what I'm saying. To use it as a tool to be able to make sure that there's clarity in the communication, because when you have clarity in communication, that means you're more confident. Everybody's more confident. We're more satisfied in the XYZ. There's boundaries that can be upheld. The end result, at least for you, should be more, I would say, maybe not in your control, but more aligned with where you wanted it to go when you can be really clear in your communication.
And if you want an AI hack, if you ever have the opportunity to record a conversation, record a team meeting, for example, you can throw that into ChatGPT or whatever platform you use and ask them to analyze the communication and then list out the clear points and what could have been clear, what could have been more accurately just spoken about. You can actually get it to analyze your conversation and your meetings to see if you're actually saying what you think you're saying, to see if the points you're trying to make are actually getting across, and to see if Chat GPT pulls it up or whatever AI program you're using, and actually see if you're communicating what and how you think you are, because it's enlightening sometimes to see, even asking like, what's my tone? What are the word choices I'm making? What is it saying to the group, etc.? And what's the group's reactions and how they're speaking? What are they saying? And it can really help you analyze the effectiveness of your meetings and effectiveness of your conversations and communications with your team if you have the opportunity to record them. It's always a fun exercise.
I love that. A couple other side notes. Again, be aware of cultural nuances with communication and even the pace of your communication. But even we cuss, obviously. Our name of this is the Pursuit of Badasserie. There are certain people that you might not use that language around, and that's not being fake. It's actually being respectful. And still, you're not all of one thing, right? Also, when you have a difficult conversation, let's say, or something hard that you have to say, if you can say it in 3 sentences or less, and I actually like 2 sentences or less, you don't over explain, you don't justify. So when you can practice that, that will really help clear the communication, because a lot of times communication is convoluted because there's all this other shit and fluff, like Amanda said earlier, around it. Only the other last thing that I would love to do is when you're a really good communicator and you understand human nuances in a way, but especially when you're a good communicator, you can still lead the conversation with the other person feeling like they're leading it. Meisner would say the art of diplomacy. And I love that. And I think it's really important, especially with prospects and sales in your team, that you're still leading it, but they're empowered to feel like they're leading it. I mean, sometimes you have to give over the reins and that's okay. But that is also a communication technique to be able to kind of make sure that things are going in the direction that you need them to go. Obviously, don't use this as a manipulative technique. This is something that you want to use in good faith and in the right way. But yeah,
I'm not going to tell you how to use those tactics. You want to use it for manipulation, that's on you. That's not on us. That's on you, boo. So if there's other questions you have around how to better communicate with your team, better communicate with your C-suite, better communicate with your vendors, shareholders, anybody, send us a message. We want to help you communicate better with whoever you need to communicate with. And if you've ever read a book or watched a movie and thought for a second, why don't they just talk to each other? What's wrong with this? Then you know that you at least have some awareness that it's really irritating when you can't communicate. You have so much that would be done. 500 pages of that book could have been solved by just somebody picking up the phone and having a conversation. Same thing in your life. You can get 500 pages further in your life. It's the main character of your own story if you can better communicate whatever it is you are trying to communicate.
Absolutely.
So make sure you are liking, subscribing, share this with somebody who might need a little kick, reminder, conversation on how to communicate. We are happy to help be the facilitators of that just through the podcast.
Yep. Until next time,
get after it.
Thanks for tuning in. But remember, listening is not doing.
Take what you heard today and move.
Share the episode, leave us a review, and tag us when you take action.
Head over to thepursuitofbadasserie.com and see how we're helping entrepreneurs get results without the fluff.
Until next time,
let's get after it.